How's everybody? Happy Palm Sunday to you. Happy spring break. Sunday is kind of a test for me. It's I find the beginning of Holy Week really hard. It feels uncomfortable. I'm ill at ease. There's this anticipation of somebody I love dying that I can't shake. So I just tell that to you as I'm talking. The someone dying I'm talking about is Jesus. It's not a revelation about a family member or myself. It's just, I find it, how about you? It's this odd, hard thing for me to bear. So the sermon will be coming out of that kind of odd, dark, confused place. We announced that Jason's going to be the pastor at Annandale United Methodist Church. And I was thinking there's some of you in the room who don't know who Jason is. Jason's one of the associate pastors of Aldersgate. We have visitors every week, and it's glad to have you here. And then there's maybe some that don't know yet that Jason is moving. So I want you to make sure I'm gentle with you and you have a chance to process the information. We as a church asked that Jason stay, and Jason asked that he stay. And when we say asked, there is a bishop that oversees all of the churches in Virginia. So asking is what we do. We don't do telling, we do asking. And the bishop decided in her infinite wisdom that Jason's best place was at Annandale. Our prayers are with him as he makes, but I'm not excited, I'm not glad. I've thought about burning the bishop's house down and think it probably won't help, won't make things better. I'm happy for him because he'll have a chance to do great work there. I'm also aware he's been doing great work here. So it's not like an either-or thing. But my prayers are with him. I also am excited about a new person coming here. I think it's going to be good for us, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them. There are a couple approval processes that have yet to be hurdles to be jumped over, and the bishop hasn't done those yet. So those will happen over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be able to announce, once it's final, who it is that's coming. And they'll come the beginning of July. So we'll do some introductory kind of things to get to know this new chapter. But it's going to be a test for us, don't you think? It's going to be a test of who we are and what it is we come for and what it is to create a community and the work of creating a community and how we're going to do that and do it well. Are you ready for the test? Like, I'm never ready for a test. It's like if you were asking me who's buried in King Tut's tomb or when was the Battle of 1812 fought, I'm ready. I was in Mr. Buell's American history class, and I don't know if I was always ready for his test. The way he did his test is like his test would always be 100 fill-in-the-blank questions about history. Did anybody have a professor like that? 11th grade, 100 fill-in-the-blank questions about history. Like, the thing he did that was great is that he would read to you the test a week before he gave it, so that you knew exactly every question was going to be on the test. Then he would say, go read the book, go get a study group, find the answers. I'll mix up the order in which the questions are asked, but you're never going to question what it is I want you to know. I thought that was the hardest, most significant test I would take in Mr. Buell's class. I didn't know that the most attractive girl in that class at the age of 16 would invite me to the Sadie Hawkins Day dance. That was the most important test I had to pass. Didn't know it at the time. Mr. Solom's chemistry class. There are tests that come that you don't know they're going to come until they do. Did you see the ISIS sympathizer who in France carjacked a woman's car after killing her, shot police officers, and then went into a market and took around 35 people hostage? And a police officer offered himself in exchange for one of the female hostages. And they did the exchange. The woman got out. The police officer got in. But he never got back out. I don't know if that was the test that I had to take, that I could pass. I don't know that I could do well. I don't know what it would reveal about me. The parables of Jesus are often tests. That is, people come to Jesus and ask him a question to test him. And he turns their question on them so that it's not a question of him, but a question of them. I've always thought it's odd that people are attesting Jesus. Jesus ought to be the one who has a desk that he set up and you fill out your resume and see if you could join the kingdom that he's going to establish. It just seems odd to me that we think he has to fill out a resume and we figure out if we want him to be in our lives. It just seems like we got it turned upside down. But I understand that you and I don't get to live forever. We don't get to do everything. So there's this kind of test we do with each other to see if we're worth each other's time. I don't get to drive every great car that's ever made. I don't get to go to every great concert that's ever performed. I don't get to eat in every great restaurant in the world that I could ever eat in. I don't get to live in every state or every country. So there's these tests you kind of do. You do it with mentors and teachers and gossip, Amazon and Angie's List. You find somebody who does a shortcut for you and gives you a review, and you go, oh, that's what I want to do, because you can't do it all. So there is this review process called questions in which people ask Jesus things to find out if he's worth their time, if he's where they should be engaging their lives. And that's where the parables come from. These parables that don't try to explain the kingdom but expose the kingdom. I mean, nobody in the New Testament uses one of the parables of Jesus to make an argument. Nobody in the New Testament quotes the parables of Jesus. These are initiations. They are a way of making us ask the right questions. Sabi Rabi was a Nobel laureate physicist. He discovered things about the physical universe that no one has ever discovered before. And on a PBS special, he was asked, how is it that he was able to discover things no one else knew? And he said he asks good questions. And the follow-up question to his answer of good questions was, where did you learn to ask good questions? And he said, from my Jewish mother in Brooklyn. When all other kids got home from school, their parents would ask them, what did you learn today? And like by second grade, every kid that knows anything knows the answer is nothing, right? I mean, have you ever had a kid tell you what they learned in school today? But for the rest of your life, you'll keep asking that question as if somehow you're going to get a different answer. His mom asked him, Isabe, what good question did you ask in school today? And so he learned how to ask good questions. The parables of Jesus are a way of God asking us questions. Not to explain it to see if I have the fill-in-the-blank questions right on this test, but more like a mirror he holds up to expose me for who I really am, what I really value, what I really want, what I will do. The Sunday called Palm Sunday is one of those tests, one of those ways of God holding a mirror to us and inviting us to find out who we are. We think it's going to be about Jesus. It's always amazing that, in effect, it is about us. I got in the mail this week a brochure to take people to the Oberammergau 2020 production at the foothills of the Bavarian Alps in this small village. It's been put on since 1634, when the bubonic plague was making its way through Europe and had killed a third of its population. And this small village prayed that they would be spared. And if they were spared, they would tell the story every 10 years of the Holy Week, the final week in the life of Jesus. And they were spared. And in 1634, they put on the first production, performed by members of the community, the people who lived in that town. And every 10 years since then, they've done it. In 1930, Adolf Hitler saw the Oberammergau production. And he saw it again in 1934, which was the 300th anniversary of the production. And he wrote a review of it. This is what I mean about sometimes we think we are testing a thing, so we write our reviews to give our opinion, how it passed our test. But in effect, it ends up being a test of us. This is what he wrote. Adolf Hitler wrote of his witnessing of the Oberammergau production of the Passion Play. It is vital that the Passion Play be continued at Oberammergau, for never has the menace of Jewry been so convincingly portrayed as in this presentation of what happened in the time of the Romans. There one sees in Pontius Pilate a Roman, racially and intellectually so superior that he stands out like a strong, clean rock in the midst of the whole muck and mire of Jewry. 1934. He thought he was testing the play, but in effect, what happened? The play tested him, revealed him, showed who he was. I don't want to tell you that's what I think Palm Sunday does and why I find it so disquieting, so uncomfortable for me. So I want to do a little history and a little bit of what I think is happening on Palm Sunday. But it's a little heavy. Are you okay? You ready to do it? Get one of like the kids' bags if you want to color or something. Because like doing two things at once can help you process stuff. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's okay. In the same way that Hitler had a mindset, so when he watched the play, he already had written what it was he was going to see, right? His prejudice, his bigotry, already set in motion what he was going to see in the play. There were people in the days of Jesus, almost all of the population, who already knew what they wanted from a Messiah, what they wanted from God's king. 500 years earlier, they had returned from captivity Israel to a country that had no homes, no agriculture, no marketing, no business, where the temple had been destroyed. 500 years they came back to resurrect a country, to rebuild its roads and its plumbing, to rebuild its agriculture and its marketing, to rebuild its temple and its priesthood. And in 300 years, they had resurrected their country, only to have Rome invade it, to set up garrisons of soldiers who were on every corner, to have taxes extracted from the people, so that the money that should have gone into the people of Israel was instead going into the coffers of Rome. So they're brooded within the people of Israel this longing to return to the days of David, when they would be in charge of their own destiny. They would be free. And they longed for a king. In fact, there was in Zechariah this prophecy that the king that God had chosen would enter the city of Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. That's the prophecy. That's what they're expecting. And on this holy weekend, when tens of thousands of pilgrims had made their way to Israel, and Rome had sent in tens of thousands of troops to control the people that were in the streets, in this kind of powder keg that is Israel, where they are longing for Rome to be thrown off, they see Jesus, and Jesus lights the powder keg. Of all the ways he could enter the city of Jerusalem, he picks the one that matches what Zechariah said. When your king comes, when God sends you a king, he will come on the back of a donkey. And dressed that way, they lift up their palm branches, which is like our American eagle. This symbol is the symbol of Israel, of the nation, so that when Jesus comes into town and they are waving the palm branches, they are saying, USA, USA. They are saying Israel. It's a national anthem that they are singing as Jesus comes into town, riding on the back of the donkey, the king that God had sent to throw off the Roman compressors, and they were finally going to be free. They have in their mind what the Messiah should be like, and when Jesus comes, they announce, this is our guy, this is the one, this is the Messiah, we're with him. You get all that? That's what Palm Sunday is all about. And then Jesus goes out. After he comes into Jerusalem, he goes out to the hillside, down the same road where he came in, back up on a hill where he can overlook the city of Jerusalem, and he begins to weep. He's just had he's won the Super Bowl. He's won March Madness. He's in the Final Four. He has won the national championship. He's just been elatedly called the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He is the Messiah. You would think this is what he had worked for 3 years. But what he does is he cries and he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I have wept over you. I have wanted to gather your children like a hen gathers its chicks under my wings, but you would not come. He knows that in 30 years, Israel, in ignorance and arrogance and greed and selfishness, will believe their army can take on Rome's might. And they will attack. And when they do, Rome will rain down hell with a fury that knows no mercy. Every building will be destroyed. Men, women, and children will be crucified, murdered, and tortured. The temple will be brought to the ground. Israel, the nation, will be erased from the map like they had never been. And for 2,000 years, the country's gone. And Jesus sees it coming. And they get to pick on Palm Sunday, Holy Week, if they're going to follow this Messiah or another. When Jesus refuses to take up arms, when he refuses to be the Messiah that they want. I have taken my grandchildren to Build-A-Bear, where you get to make the bear that you want. I have a Build-A-Jesus, where I make a Jesus I want, where they had to build a Messiah, and they knew the Messiah they wanted. They were running a test on Jesus, and when Jesus didn't pass their test, when he wasn't the Messiah they wanted, they threw him out. And they picked a guy named Barabbas. Then Jesus does the thing that I don't understand. Like, he should just walk away. He should go be with his disciples. Go back to mom. Go home. But what he does is he makes his life a parable of the future they're going to see. He becomes a window into the future they don't want. Because in his death, his torture, his crucifixion, that is their future. They don't believe it. They don't believe he's like the first one of what they're going to become. He bears in his body the price for their arrogance, their ignorance, their selfishness, and their greed. He bears it and dies for their sake. We think when we look at Palm Sunday that it's a test of Jesus. We just are surprised it's a test of us, of what we love, what we hold most dear, what's most important to us, who we're going to follow, who's really the Messiah for us. I thought yesterday was the beginning of a test for the United States about its relationship to guns. Anybody else think that way? Republicans and Democrats, people from a variety of backgrounds, are being provoked by a bunch of teenagers who won't go away. Irritating and arrogant and well-spoken, who demand that the conversation come up with new answers, who aren't willing to be silenced by the answers of the past and are demanding something new. Now, you may not agree with the conversation, but you can't doubt that the conversation is happening. I know lots of you went on the march. I even know some of us went on the anti-march. We are a unique congregation with people from a variety of backgrounds. So it seems to me that it's going to be a test. That Jesus' tests weren't just about something that happened 2,000 years ago, but there's this test that kind of reveals your character, tells you who you are, helps you become part of the development of a culture that wouldn't have been what it is without your engagement. So how will we engage? How will we be part of the conversation, or we just wish it would go away? 75,000 people in 2016, 75,000 Americans were injured by guns and gun violence. Most of the gun violence from gangs. Gun violence takes about 60% of the people who die, which is 33,000 people a year, from suicide. There's almost no other developed country in the world that has our numbers. So someone asked me last night, what happened to the culture? How did it become so coarse that people dying from guns seems natural and normal? There have been 17 school shootings in the 12 weeks of 2018. 17. It seems as if there's a mirror being held up to us, and we get to answer the test. I'm not giving you the answer to the test. That would be easy. The question is, what will you do? What will we do? So on this Palm Sunday, I want you to know about this Jesus who enacted parables as well as spoke them. And that this Holy Week is an acted parable in which the question is, who will you follow? I offer to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.